Thanks for joining me today. This webinar is Get to Know Your ArcGIS Account. I have dropped in a link to this Google presentation into the chat. And on that first slide, you'll see the attendance form link and the workshop evaluation link. So please fill out both. You get paid if you fill out the attendance form. And I get feedback for when you fill out the workshop evaluation. Before I start kind of getting into all of the nitty gritty, how many of you have accessed your ArcGIS account? How many people is this completely new? Awesome. Okay. All right. So we have a mixed bag. Your ArcGIS account is similar to a Google account in respect that you have a lot of options. You have a lot of apps in it. And so just like with Google accounts, we had a forms workshop and we had a sheets workshop and a drive workshop and a slides workshop. There are many workshops that we could offer for your ArcGIS account. This one is just kind of some basic overview, and we're going to do a little bit of searching their online ArcGIS database for some maps. And if anything along the way interests you, like I want to know a little bit more about that, that's great. I could always do a follow-up one-on-one or with a small group to go into other parts of the account in more depth. Happy to do that. Any questions before we jump in? Okay, so our brief agenda, I'm just going to go over it again. It's the general overview of your ArcGIS account, which in about 1 minute we'll get into. And then we're going to discuss a few different methods to search for interactive maps. And we may filter data, we may not. It depends on how the conversation goes, and we'll definitely save a map to know how to do that and where does it go when you do save a map, when you find something that you like and you want to hold on to it. All right, so if you have never ever gone to your ArcGIS account, we're going to go there right now. And we have a single sign-on in our Google waffle. So the waffle is always a menu of apps way at the bottom. Way at the bottom. We have an ArcGIS icon, and that's what you click to get into your account. And so once you click it, you are faced with this pop-up. Click on the blue rectangle that says login with redlandsschools.net. And when you see the night version of Redlands, then you're on your home page. So I'm going to stop here. I know we had someone join while I was explaining how to get onto our account, so I want to make sure everyone is where we are. So there are two parts of this kind of like home page that I want to talk about. One is this header, and you can see that there's a blue line that goes underneath each word. So each of these are links that take you out to different aspects of your account. And then you also have a waffle. So you have your Google waffle and you have an ArcGIS waffle. When you click on that waffle, you're going to see a menu of apps just like you have with Google. These are just the ArcGIS apps. And so they are movable. You can configure your menu however you like. I have pulled up the ones that I use a lot. Story maps I use regularly, and Survey 123 I use regularly. And I think it's at first listed by alphabetical order. That may or may not be true. I've moved them around so much that they're definitely not in alphabetical order for me anymore. So these two I use a lot. Map Viewer we're going to use today. Other ones that people may use are quick capture. The other ones you don't have to worry about right now. But Map Viewer, Story Maps, and Survey 123, those are the most widely used apps right now. You may hear people call this your ArcGIS account or ArcGIS Online. Consider ArcGIS Online like a big bucket, and all of these apps are inside this bucket. Esri has other buckets. So you have other ArcGIS products that are computer based. They're desktop apps. And so this is an online app. We have everything attached to the ArcGIS Online app. It's kind of like, it's odd that it's in the menu of apps, but it's one of Esri's apps. It just happens to also work with Survey 123 and Story Maps and Map Viewer. Any questions at this point? If you're looking for things, one place to look is your waffle. Another place to look is content. So click on content. I'm going to have a lot in my content. You may have nothing in it. And that's because you haven't worked with your account yet. This part of your account is like Google Drive. It's where everything you save hangs out and is stored. So if you're looking for something, you're going to look in content. And the other one that I want to talk about is map. That's what we're going to explore today. So over my time and getting to know this account, I've come up with like 3 different ways that I've worked with teachers, and teachers have worked with ArcGIS that allow you to also search for interactive maps. One way are geo inquiries, and these are really short, quick lessons that Esri curriculum writers have created. The other way is Map Viewer, where you might be interested. Can I find a map on population? Can I find a map on population density? Is there something out there that connects to my curriculum right now that's not also here? So we're going to look at that. And then the third way is if you see something or you want something that you don't see, then we could always partner up and I could create something for you. The first that I want to dive into are the geo inquiries. So this is an active link. Please, you can follow along with me on your own computer, or you can just watch the screen. Esri has created different collections. So you have government, US history, we have human geography, mathematics, world geography, world history. For this presentation, I'm going to dive into US history. And within this collection, I have several different activities that I could click on and take a look at. Okay. So I'm going to click on the very first one, the 13 colonies. And it's going to take me to a PDF. And they list standards, they list the outcomes, they have kind of like a lesson plan that you could follow. Teachers that have used the geo inquiries either follow as is or adapt. You know, you may like part of it and you may want to tweak part of it. That's great. Use it however you choose. But every geo inquiry has a map URL. So I'm going to click on that. and it's going to take me to a map. Now, this is a map that Esri created. And when you first click on that link, it's going to show you the version with the legend. You want to also then click on content. And this map has all these other layers inside of it that you could check out. The ones with the check next to it, those are the ones that are visible. And the ones that don't, they've been turned off. So I can turn on and off the longitude and latitude. I can turn on and off the 13 colonies. I can then start clicking around and checking out labels. The other possessions have another aspect to the map. It's dynamic, it will change. You can zoom in, you can click, and it will have some other information on it. So the PDF itself, I have so many tabs open. There we go. The PDF will walk students through the activities, but again, you know, if you're using this with using one of these geo inquiries with a younger group, you may want to redo it, or just kind of you know, take out a chunk and focus on that. All right, so we're here again. Something that I really like about this, they also have time series. I'm going to turn off all the other layers, and I'm going to turn on the American Colonies Population Time Series. So some of the geo inquiries have this feature. Down at the bottom, it has a timeline, and when you play it, it will start populating with different colors, and the colors are listed in the legend of what it means. So this is a great task that kids can play and then start observing about which colonies were populated the earliest, and which colonies had the greatest population. And it's just going to go over and over again. So in general, geo inquiries have a little lesson that goes along with it, and then it has several layers that students can click, answer questions about, and explore information. I would like to talk about one more. Yeah, this is the other one I had on. Okay. And that's this one right here, Native American lands. Again, same type of layout, always with a map link. And some of these have a progression. So you can see what was considered tribal nations at one point in time, and then see what happens over time. And then go to 1850, how it changes, and then 2015, how it changes. So what I really like about some of these geo inquiries and some of the maps that Esri has is that you have that historical perspective. What does the United States or other parts of the world look like at one point in time? And then how does it shift over and over? questions so far? I do suggest at some point taking a look at these. And if you're interested in any of these, but you may want to adapt the map to something slightly different, then that's where I can help as well. This is a great resource. The GeoInquiry has a mini lesson, always has a map, and then the map is interactive for kids to toggle things on, check things out, that sort of thing. Questions on GeoInquiries before we move on to something else? We good?
Jen, can you just show one more quick time how you got there in the first place?
Absolutely. You can, well, on my slide deck, and I'm not sure if you got that. I will drop it in the chat one more time. I have it on slide 5. But you can also Google it. GeoInquiries Esri, and it most likely will be your first hit, and it will take you right to their group of collections.
So the kids have access to this as well, and like, is that what you suggest? You give them the like the PDF, like in Google Classroom, and then have them go to their own ArcGIS account and do
you
play
can
around
do that.
with it.
Some teachers have not given the official Esri PDF, and they've just created their own list of questions and then dropped the link into Google Classroom. And so they click on that link and then kind of make observations and take notes and answer questions. Yeah. Great question. Any others? All right. So something that I really like, and I am going to go back to my home. In home is always that night version of Redlands. And I would like to explore this map tab. When we click on map, it's going to take us to map viewer. And this is actually map viewer classic. In the upper right hand corner, you can see open in new map viewer. So we first got our accounts in 2019, right before the pandemic. And July 2019, they started updating their story map app and they started updating map viewer. And so there are two versions of map viewer. There's this classic view. And if you click on open in new map viewer, there's their newer version. Both are active. I like both for different purposes. The new map viewer has a dark panel on the left-hand side and a light panel on the right-hand side. And this keeps getting updated. So it's not a final product yet. It was in beta for about a year, and now it's out of beta, but they keep updating it every few months. So it has some great features, but it doesn't have everything that Map Viewer Classic has. So I do work in both. And because I had mentioned maybe we'll do some filtering, Map Viewer Classic is the best for that. So today I'm going to work with Map Viewer Classic, which means I'm going to click up here to get back to that older version. So this is the second. Geo Inquiries was that first part, and the second thing that I wanted to talk about was Map Viewer. And over here on the upper left hand, it says Add. And when I click the drop down, I have some traces. I want to go search for layers. And the very first database that they're going to ask you to search is your content, my content. So this is stuff that's sitting in my, kind of like my drive, my ArcGIS drive. Okay? But I don't want to look for that. I want to look for something that Esri has created or someone has made and Esri has vetted it and put it in their ArcGIS online database. So I'm going to click that drop down. I could look, so these are the different databases. I could look in my favorites. I can look in my groups. If something is in my organization, that means it's been shared with everyone in Redlands Unified. Living Atlas and ArcGIS Online, those are the two formal databases that Esri supports. My first go is always ArcGIS Online. So I'm going to click there. So now I'm no longer looking in my drive for something. I'm looking in the 10,000 plus layers that ArcGIS is offering us. And they're going to just give you some general ones right off the bat. I don't know if yours are the same as mine. It might be different based on search history. But now we can start searching for these. I'm going to talk about kind of like a secondary and also a elementary example. I'm going to start with population density. So I typed in population density and then I have to press enter. And one of my very first hits is USA population density 2021. So I'm going to look at that one. So to add it to my map, I can do one of two things. I can click the link and select add to map. Or I can just click this plus button. And within a few seconds, it's going to show up here. All right, great. So plan B is to look at median age. And now that I've added it, I'm going to go back using this arrow. And I have a legend here. I'm going to turn this one off so it doesn't interrupt at all. So normally it's not this slow. I had a lot of ArcGIS tabs up in preparation so I wouldn't have to search and then bring it up. But that may have slowed down my computer because I had about 6 to, I don't know, maybe 8 of them up there. So let's discuss what we have right here. So right now we're looking at the United States. The lightest color, that area, that county, has a median age of between 54 and 86. And then that darkest blue has a median age between 0 and 28. So this is the county view. And I can click on San Bernardino County. And it will tell me eventually the average age, the median age of that district. But I don't have to stay at this level. I could start zooming in. And if I zoom in far enough, it will then change the view. And now here we have the zip code. So these are broken down by zip codes. So now I can look at the median age for specific zip codes, maybe ones that are very, close to Redlands. If I move in close enough, I can then get the census tract. So we're moving in, like, we're just kind of diving down granular into this information. What's great about this program is this, yes, this is great. We can see all these wonderful things. If it allows, here we go. This area code, it's telling us it has a population of 30, median age of this population is 33. I can click another one and it will tell me the median age is higher because it's going to be in the 37 to 45 range. But I still kind of don't know what part of the county it is because it's covering up the map. So I can go back to content and I can click on median age and then click on the drop down, those three dots, and click on transparency. And now I can make the map transparent so I can see what's underneath. And I can add and search for a specific address. So I search for the district office. I can see the outline right here, and I can see that, it has a blue over it, which means that in this area of Redlands, the median age is on the lower side. So we have a few people from Bryn Mawr here, and I was doing some research for them, and they were looking for railroads. But the request was about railroads. And so Carleton College has several maps that are pretty interesting. And so I'm going to add all of them. I have turned them all off. And I'm going to add them. I can drag and organize them to be in a certain order. So I am going to turn on the U.S. railroads from 1840 first. And you can see what's there. And then you can add the different layers to it and have discussions with your students of what's happening. How does the railroad system, kind of progress with the growing country? And then in 1970, it actually starts to move all the way to San Francisco. What's nice about this is that that's very faint. I can barely see it. But when we're using these layers, we can change all the symbology. So this gray line, I want to change it to black. And now I can easily see that line as it moves across the country. So you have the power to find layers of interest and to customize the symbology to make an impact.
Jen?
Yeah.
Does that only function when we are, while we're presenting it, or do we save a copy of this way? What do we do to use this later?
Love it. So right up here. So let's say I found this, I love it. I want to hold on to these layers, and then I don't like purple. I want to use blue. I want to change the colors. I go up here, click save, and I'm going to title it. Tags help you search for things. So I'm just going to say railroads. Oh, I like that. That was in there. And then I'm going to put Redlands because this is something that I'm using for Redlands. And then it says save in folder. It's saving in this folder for me. But just like with Google, you can make other folders and add it to a folder of choice. And it tells you it's saving it to my content. So I opened up the map. I did some searching. I found some layers that I like. I want to do something with them, so I saved them. And when I click that home drop down, I can go to content. And it's right here. Railroad progression. And so then I can just click on it and bring it up again. I am a math person by trade. That was my, I was a classroom math teacher for 21 years before I switched over. And I love maps. History, not my first subject, that's for sure. But when I was doing a little research, I found out that the first, I think the railroad was Baltimore and Ohio. So I can actually look for that in the filtering process. So I can go down and I think its name right here is not, starts with, ends with. So if you're comfortable with filtering, you're able to filter and look for something very specific. I'm going to say contains. And I can apply filter or apply filter and zoom to. So here's my filter. I can click on a segment. And when I turn these off, there they are. And what's interesting is for me to see that these are really small. You know, the railroad has to start someplace, you know, just to see like what really happened in the 1930s and then how it progresses. So if you want to zoom in on just certain aspects of your graph, you can, or your map, you can do that.
Jen, I was scanning my room right when you opened up that bottom box. How did you open that bottom box to do the filters?
Great. So you can click on any of the layers.
Mm-hmm.
And when you click on it, you're going to see this icon, and that means your attribute table.
Okay. Okay.
And then that's all the data that's actually listed in that map is attached to a table. Yeah. So I have shown the population density. That's a polygon graph because it's filling up a whole area. The railroads is a line graph. You can also have points. And something that I have done recently with the 4th grade are mission projects. And this is just a tiny, tiny, tiny graph. But it does also show the time lapse. I'd find it if I spelled the word mission correctly. Here it is. So now we're getting into maps that our kids made this. All right. So this is a time lapse. Down below, you can see that there's a timeline And I have set it up for every 2 years. So it will progress and show the missions, where they're located, and which ones were established in that time range. And then if there's nothing actually popping up in that interval, that means, so 2 years passed before another mission was established. And I like that because it just, sometimes kids don't have a sense of time. There are sometimes it's a few intervals of 2 pass before another mission pops up. So these are things that you can do with your students. They can map the points and turn on that time lapse. You have 20, and then 21 is going to come up. Question?
My son Tommy and I watched a really cool one the other day because we've been on the Big Island, and we pulled one of these up, and it showed lava flow and creating new coastline in the time frame it took. It was very cool.
Yeah, there are great maps out there, and that sometimes you may find something that you want to work with and you don't know how to adapt it. I can help. Or you may not have the time to search, but you're like, this is what I'd like to find, and I can find it for you and then share it with you. The last item is collaborate with Jen. So this right here is a map that I custom created. I was working with an 8th grade social studies teacher over at Beatty, and he's like, I have this image. It's a paper copy of a map, but I want our kids to do something with it digitally. He's going to combine it with a different app that Esri has, the story map. And he's like, can you create this in the computer? And with the ArcGIS technology, I could. So now, if there's a map out there that you'd like created, I have the time to do that because that's part of my job. So this is after 1863, and refresh. Normally you don't have to refresh, but I'm going to refresh. Hopefully the before version pops up. I think I turned off the wrong ones. There it is. There you go. So working with this map yesterday in 8th grade classes, they were able to, they're like, what do you notice? What do you wonder? They figured out what was different about it. They talked about the different colors. They talked about the boundary. They talked about how Virginia became 2 different states. And now they're going to work on a longer project where they're going to be adding points of battles in key cities to this. So this is one example of teachers collaborating with me. They had an image and they wanted it recreated. So that's something that can be done. Another class that I was working with wanted to do work with Lewis and Clark. And so I first worked with their students to create a map. So they built this map. The red dotted lines, that's the path of Lewis and Clark. And that was pre-made. We found it in the ArcGIS online library. We also found the water passages, added that. And at the beginning of the webinar, I showed you the tribal nations map, and it was really full. It had a lot of information on it, but they didn't want all that information. They wanted a few pieces extracted from it that dealt with the certain tribal nations that Lewis and Clark encountered along the way. And so I pulled out those pieces and made a different layer on them with them. And so the students layered all those pieces, and then they started adding different points of the different forts along the way. and they placed it in what's called a story map. This is, and added, text and other images, and they responded to curriculum this way. But it started out as a map. We put layers on it, and then we put it into the story map. Something else that we could do, we could make thematic maps. Students did research on states. And so each student took 2 states and they did a bunch of research on it. And then they filled out a survey, put all their information on a spreadsheet, and then that was uploaded into a map. And so the yellow states have a state bird that is colorful. It has some patches of yellow or blue or red or orange. And then the gray states, their state bird is all neutrals, grays, blues, whites, blacks. And so we also noticed that many states share a bird. And when we mapped all of the information, the students realized that most of the birds that have color are shared amongst multiple states. And so that was spatial data that was pretty cool when they mapped it and took a look at it and started to notice and wonder what was going on. So kids researched, they inputted, they played around with maps and made a thematic map on it. Something else that they did is then they took that information and made a map based on zip code, the minimum zip code for their state. And then they were able to see the progression that in the Northeast, in the eastern part, the zip codes start with 0, start with 1. And then as they move west, the zip codes start with a higher number. So that spatial visualization was pretty cool. And they made this. They were able to change the colors. They could label the states either with the zip code or with the name. There are things that they can do. So what I wanted to do here today is to show that progression of data that's available to you. One way is through a geo inquiry. You have a mini lesson and you have a map right there for you, and you can use as is, or you can tweak to match your curriculum and or style. Then you can look for certain layers. Population density and median age were 2 of those examples. And then students can start talking about what that means. Like in math, they talk about median. And maybe human geography, is that something that you talk about with population density? Or I'm not sure, kind of throwing it out there. But you can have those conversations. And then you could also move to, you want your students to collect some data and then display it in a map. And so there are lots of different ways that we could start using the map part of this account in our classrooms. I also want to let you know that I'm trying to build out kind of like a bank of regularly used maps. I've worked a lot with 6th grade and 8th grade this past year. So if we could connect on the maps that are really important for the 7th grade curriculum, I can add them here.
Yeah, most definitely. I'll be in touch with you because there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot for me to gather from this, but a lot of questions that I already have.
Yes. So for the 6th grade, I started writing down some of the geo inquiries that match theirs. And then this Egypt map is a mix of things that were already in the ArcGIS online databank with some layers that they wanted added, a little customization. So between what's already there and what I can add to it, we can really come up with a lot of maps that you're looking for. All right, well, it is 4:31. I want to stick to my time. Thank you so much for coming and letting me show you a little bit about ArcGIS. The more I work with it, the more I love it and find different things to do with it. So my favorite is collaborating with teachers. With a grain of an idea, we can create something really cool. Yeah,